Recently on Twitter, a young lady was going viral because she started reading the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z manga for the very first time as her own little series on her TikTok or Instagram. And as she's been popping off, a lot of people have been praising her, for she had reached a moment in the manga where, spoiler alert if you happen to be younger than the age of, 5 years old, Piccolo sacrifices himself to save Gohan for the first time during the Saiyan saga, and she had a great grasp on perceiving the series at a deeper level than the average Dragon Ball fan.
I have no clue how you guys read Dragon Ball as a kid. I'm on chapter 29. I'm sure you know. I genuinely think this story is trying to destroy me. Because why would you have us go from despising Piccolo to thinking he's the coolest character ever to having him save Gohan and then create the most beautiful and devastating scene of Gohan asking Piccolo, "Why would you save me?" Seeing where Piccolo was as a character in OG Dragon Ball, and now not only seeing him save Gohan, but I was not ready for that speech. He says, it's because of you and your daddy, your softness infecting me. But, boy, you were the only one who ever really talked to me. The couple of months I spent with you weren't really so bad. Gohan, don't die. To think that was his last words, the appreciation he has for somebody just talking to him really and seeing more than the Demon King. And I couldn't get past that. I tried to because, Goku's coming and it's so cool.
And with that, this brought up a conversation again that a lot of people have in the fan base, where a lot of people like to run around and claim they are big fans of the franchise, or there are people who like to look at the series from an outside view despite never watching a single minute of Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z, and run around with major misconceptions of the series and pass them around as facts. Now, don't get me wrong, I am no buzzkill. I love to use those misconceptions as jokes like the average Dragon Ball fan also, but that's all they are, jokes. So seeing this young lady pop off made me want to do this video where I take every major misconception of the series and debunk them and show you that the universe of Dragon Ball actually has a lot more depth than they actually give it for. Now, I want to say this, as much as I love them and I will be continuing to quote crab baskets until I am senile and old in the face, I believe that Team 4-Star may not be the originators, but definitely exacerbated those misconceptions for years to come. We are talking about an abridged series that was a parody of the series that got millions upon millions of views, but somehow along the way, many people took those jokes that are dangerously close to the source material, and some of them that are completely off the source material, that made people take them at face value and muddy the perception of the official release. Misconception number 1. Chi-Chi is holding Gohan back and she's an insane and toxic mother. Now, I'm starting off with a more lesser known misconception because a lot of people don't really talk about this, but this is one misconception that kind of rears its head once in a while. And I feel like this is one of the more frustrating perceptions of Chi-Chi. Like, I get it, she's a little bit of a nagger and she can be a little bit frustrated when it comes to important tasks, but she's not doing it without reason. When it comes to fandom spaces and sometimes the Team 4-Star parodies and jokes, like I said before, Chi-Chi is routinely vilified as a screaming, overbearing shrew who sabotages her son's potential and ruins everyone's fun. But when you strip away the anime-only filler episodes, which heavily exaggerated her nagging for comedic effect, and you take a look at the manga itself, Chi-Chi isn't some kind of toxic villain or just random toxic mother. She's ultimately one of the few realist individuals that's trapped in somewhat what she might perceive a sci-fi nightmare, desperately trying to protect her family from a cycle of horrific life-threatening violence. For us to understand why Chi-Chi is so fiercely protective of Gohan's education and safety outside of the fact of her just being his mother, you have to understand at the sheer unadulterated trauma she experienced back to back as soon as Gohan was born. Imagine from Chi-Chi's perspective when she figures out that Goku just goes on a random trip to Kame House, runs into his random alien brother, dies trying to fight against him because he kidnapped her son, and even after he sacrificed himself to save Gohan and Raditz was turned into a literal donut, as soon as that happened, Piccolo kidnaps her toddler and runs off with him for a literal year. And even after the kidnapping happened, an alien threat has come not only to destroy the planet because their officer was killed, but even after the Saiyan saga and all of those threats were defeated, literally her husband got brought back to life, so she didn't even get a chance to really grieve Goku that deeply at that point. But as soon as he comes back, he's beaten, broken, and bruised alongside her 4-year-old son. Literally any sane, loving mother on the planet would look at this situation and just simply say, oh, absolutely the hell not. My son is never touching martial arts ever again. Chi-Chi's obsession with Gohan studying isn't a selfish whim, it's a desperate defense mechanism to ensure that her son has a future that doesn't always have to involve getting beaten to death by random alien threats. But even taking that out of consideration, imagine that we don't talk about the Saiyan saga. The fandom always seem to forget that Chi-Chi isn't like some random helpless housewife. Chi-Chi used to be an elite martial artist on her own. She trained under her father, the Ox King, and fought her way to the quarterfinals of the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament, just only to have a chance to fight against Goku and to ask him if he wants to marry her. Meaning this person was so obsessed with Goku that she became objectively stronger than any average human in the entire Dragon Ball verse in order to fight the strongest person in the verse at that point in time, just to ask him to marry him. That means from that point alone, she knows what the warrior lifestyle entails. She knows the physical toll it takes. She knows that in the world of martial arts, characters just don't lose matches. They get beaten, broken, and bruised, and they become target for evil threats, and they will most likely be kidnapped and tortured and attacked by other villains like Yamcha and Krillin. That means she truly understands the violence firsthand. With her being so vicious in the first place, she's rejecting this for her children and is very conscious of that decision. She has to deal with constantly changing and weird scenarios just because of the biology of her family members. Even during the Buu saga, when Goku has been long dead for a long time, she actually kind of changed her perspective a little bit with martial arts. She was even willing to let Gohan, move away from his studies just for a little bit just to take part in the World Martial Arts Tournament in that year, and alongside that make Gohan train to be in the kids division. And she didn't hate it until Goten turned into a Super Saiyan. Chi-Chi is living in a world where every person that she interacts with is damn near the equivalent of a mythological god. So her being a little bit stern with her own kids is not without reason. Misconception number 2. Kid Buu is the strongest form of any of the other Buus. Now this misconception is more of a power scaling one, and honestly I'm trying to understand why this conversation is still happening, because realistically this should be a very simple answer, but you know what, we understand that power scalers like to make things up. When it comes to power in the Dragon Ball universe, it follows a very linear path, when a final enemy is basically the strongest form of that said enemy. Take Frieza with his final form, Perfector Cell. So it's not completely unreasonable for people to believe that Kid Buu is one of the strongest to ever exist because of the whole lore of the Majins and all that good stuff, so this is like the purest form of Buu. But of course, a lot of people didn't read the manga or never really paid attention to the Buu saga because there are statements explicitly said by Goku and Vegeta showing why Kid Buu is significantly weaker than Super Buu. To put it into simple terms like this, Kid Buu is the base form, and Super Buu is essentially the equivalent of his Super Saiyan when Evil Buu and Good Buu decide to merge and the evil side becomes the dominant force. And then Buu-Tanks and Buu-Han is Super Buu that absorbs Gotenks, Piccolo, and eventually Ultimate Gohan. So using basic math of the Dragon Ball universe, base form is weaker than base form plus Gohan's power. When Super Buu absorbs Ultimate Gohan, he reaches the absolute peak of power in Dragon Ball Z at that point. He is so immensely powerful that literally Goku and Vegeta are forced to fuse into Vegito just to survive. The literal tones of Goku and Vegeta change as soon as Buu-Han emerges. They are a lot more serious and a lot more potent, understanding that the only way they can beat him is if they fuse again when they defused. But then switching to when Kid Buu emerges, Vegeta actually mocks the size of Kid Buu at that point, and Goku happily states that since his power drops, they can actually fight him on their own, or at least with Goku only using Super Saiyan 3. Obviously the main reason why a lot of people believe that Kid Buu is a lot stronger than the other Buu forms is because he's a lot more dangerous. He's a lot more unpredictable. His power he uses without restraint, as the other Buus actually have some form of conscience to themselves. Kid Buu is just the physical manifestation of destruction. He does not care about anything. Talk no Jutsu doesn't work with him at all. So yeah, Kid Buu is the weakest form of Buu. Misconception number 3. It is Krillin's fault that Cell got his perfect form, and him sparing Android 18 is because he had a big crush on her. Now this is the start of the very big misconceptions that exist in the Dragon Ball universe. A lot of people believe that Krillin is the biggest falter for why Cell got his perfect form, because he couldn't bring himself to blow up Android 18 in order to save the planet because he had a big crush on her. Which is completely incorrect, because I think a lot of people forgot the biggest context for why he chose not to kill her in the first place. So here are two main things about this situation. Vegeta has reached the Ascended Saiyan form, which is not Super Saiyan 2 but a little bit in between. It is confirmed that that form is strong enough to kill Semi-Perfect Cell. While on top of that, Bulma has created a device that can blow up the bomb that's embedded in Android 18's chest. So they had two options, either have Vegeta kill Cell or have Krillin kill 18. Either way, Cell would never get his perfect form. Now I'm going to get this out of the way right now. It is Vegeta's fault, and it was always been Vegeta's fault. While yes, Krillin absolutely did have a crush on Android 18, and framing his refusal to press the boom nuking pressing button remote as purely romantic infatuation misses the deeper and more profound moral dilemma Akira Toriyama was exploring with Krillin at that moment in time. Krillin didn't spare Android 18 because he was blinded by love. He spared her because he recognized her humanity and refused to commit cold-blooded murder. Vegeta in this circumstance has already proven that he had the absolute strength to defeat Cell. He only chose not to kill Cell because Cell kept playing with his ego, kept telling him, hey, I would have killed you if you got me to my final form. And Vegeta says, nah, you would have never done that. My form is stronger than you. I'ma kill you for lying to me. Well, Cell's like, let me hold on, player. Let me tell you, I'm gonna be for real. Let me swallow up 18 real quick. Let me get my final form and I'll show you how strong I really am. And just because he teased that idea to Vegeta, Vegeta was willing to literally let him get to his final form, despite everyone around him telling him, stop it, you dumb idiot. Tien Shenhan damn near died spamming his one move repeatedly just to slow him down.
Kikoho.
Big Boy Buff Trunks had to fight Semi-Perfect Cell and Vegeta at the exact same time.
Future kick! Blow yourself up or leave. I don't care which.
Vegeta! Trunks is picking on me! Learn to sap, rat!
And in a moment of true desperation, despite Vegeta not giving a single solitary F, he had to blast Vegeta into the stratosphere in order to let him get the idea that he can't let this happen. And even when he came back, he still wanted it to happen.
What, my plans?
Sorting your plans?
Are you?
You know what? Yes!
Unfortunately, it's overshadowed by all this unyielding rage!
When it comes to Krillin, we need to understand his mindset at this point in time. Unlike Cell, who is a bioengineered monster actively consuming entire cities of innocent people, Android 17 and 18 hadn't actually done anything horrific in the main timeline yet. The only thing they've done is beat up some Z fighters, which yes, it's bad, but they left them alive. Their rampage mostly consisted of them of just stealing a van and going to Goku's house, and they didn't even really do anything there because they realized Goku wasn't there and they just left. And not only that, they were teenagers who were kidnapped by Dr. Gero and were physically altered against their will and enslaved by him. And it doesn't help that even before all of this even happened, Krillin and Trunks were responsible for the destruction of the main timeline Cell. They went into the lab and they found all of the literal schematics of Lapis and Lazuli, the real names of Android 18 and 17, and he saw that they were actual human beings altered against their will, seeing that they were nukes stuck into their chests. This man is the first person to see the details that they are actual people, compared to everybody else who sees them as nothing more than monster terrorists. So of course it makes sense to have Krillin have this moral dilemma, especially since he has a lot more of a connection with Android 18. He didn't really have that much of a detail with 17 in the first place. And of course, even before 17 got eaten up, he ran in to fight against Semi-Perfect Cell just to protect Lapis in the first place. So of course that's why I showed that they had the capacity for compassion. So when Krillin is standing over 18 with the remote, he doesn't see a target, he sees a victim. Krillin reflects on the fact that they were fundamentally human beings. He realized that destroying her while she is defenseless isn't an act of defense. It's an execution of an innocent person who happens to have a bomb inside her chest because they haven't done anything horrible up to that point. We often forget that Krillin spent his formative years training in the Orin Temple. Now, he did leave because he was seeking higher strength and he couldn't give up the huzz a little bit. I'm sorry, like, your boy saw some baddies and he said, you know what, this monk stuff ain't entirely for me. Either way, a lot of his ethics still have some lining of Buddhist inspiration. Throughout the entire series, Krillin has always been the moral compass and the most human of the Z fighters. He understands the value of a single human life in a way that the Saiyans, who only mainly care about fighting, and even Piccolo, who's still coming around and still trying to understand the softer side of things. So for Krillin, blowing up a conscious sentient girl who's currently terrified of this random bug monster that wants to swallow her whole with his tail, crosses a moral line that he feels like he will never be able to come back from. It is not outside of his character to go against people like Vegeta and willingly want to kill them because they were evil human beings. Compared to Lapis and Lazuli, he was willing to actually do decisions to actually help them out. Even at the end of the Cell Saga, he used his one and only wish from Shenron to remove the bombs from their chest, and he believed that they needed to stay together, despite him not knowing that they were siblings. Even after making that wish, when 18 asks him why he did that, Krillin doesn't confess his undying love for her or ask us out on a date. It's like a little bit of a gag that happens because Gohan called out him having a crush on her. But what he explains that he knows that she and 17 were forced into this by Dr. Gero against their will. He tells her to run because he wants her to have a chance of a normal life. And despite him being clowned on by Yamcha and thinking he did it just to win her over, Krillin explicitly states he did it because they deserve to live without fear. Even if a lot of people think that he did it just because he wanted to bag the blonde baddie, which don't get me wrong, I don't mind him thinking that way, but again, like we said, that was not the reason why he did it. He may have a crush on her, but that was never the ultimate goal. Misconception number 4. Goku only cares about having a better fight later. While yes, it is true that Goku loves a good challenge, but reducing his mercy to merely just being a battle-hungry monkey completely flattens his character. If we look closely at the manga, Toriyama establishes a distinct evolution in why Goku spares his enemies a lot of the time. It shifts from martial arts sportsmanship to a deep-seated respect for life to eventually a calculated pragmatism. Back during when Goku begs Krillin to spare Vegeta at the end of the Saiyan saga, he openly admits that his motivation is partially selfish. When he says to Krillin, "I know it's a terribly selfish thing to ask, but when I saw how unbelievably strong he was, all I could think was, I want to fight him again, one-on-one when I'm stronger. Please let him go." Goku isn't just looking for a fun match, he's experiencing the traditional artist's drive for self-improvement, which is within his character and in his Saiyan DNA. To Goku, Vegeta represents a ceiling that he hasn't reached yet, and not only that, he's the only other character at that point that isn't dead that's related or directly related to his Saiyan heritage. It was mainly about him pushing his limits of his abilities. Which ironically, as much as may be related to his Saiyan biology, it also is directly related to his training and teachings of Master Roshi. Furthermore, Goku believes in the ultimate martial artist ideal, that a rival can push you to your better goal. So he believes to a degree that he can convert Vegeta to be more of a caring individual, while at the same time him being a rival for his skills. However, by the time Goku reaches Namex, his motivation shifts drastically. The idea that Goku spares Frieza for him to be a better fight later is disproven in the manga and in the series. When Goku finally achieves Super Saiyan, his initial goal isn't even to kill Frieza, it's to break his pride.
Krillin can't be brought back to life with the Dragon Balls a second time! And I refuse to take the death of my best friend sitting down!
It's done.
What do you mean done? Well, answer me! Why are you giving up?
You've been coming at me with everything you've got, but it's finally caught up with you and your power level is falling fast. The fact is, I don't see the point in fighting you anymore. Your pride is already shot. And in the end, I guess that's good enough for me.
Goku was beyond pissed off because Frieza literally killed his best friend in cold blood. As Frieza is trying to reach his full power and Goku's already yelled at Gohan to get Piccolo off the planet and him off the planet so that way they can be safe, because at this point in time he did not care about his own well-being. All he cared about is brutalizing Frieza as badly as he possibly could, because as we just saw in that clip, that man was willing to put everything on the line just to avenge his best friend. At that moment in time, he had no interest in sparing Frieza until he got cut in half by his own attack, and then Frieza decided to start begging for mercy.
Please help me. I beg of you, have mercy on me.
Goku could only feel nothing more than pity for this tyrant that used to be this arrogant bastard. So when Goku decides to give Frieza his energy just enough to survive the exploding planet Namek, he doesn't say, "See you next time, prepare to fight you next time." No, he basically tells him, "I'm sick and tired of fighting you, I've bruised your pride, you're nothing more than just a piece of stain on the planet floor now, and I'm just gonna leave you here, and I'm gonna give you the opportunity to live your life in peace," essentially. Goku spares Frieza because executing a defeated, mutilated opponent relatively goes against his code of conduct as a fighter. At this point in time, he has achieved total victory. Killing Frieza at this point would be just straight up murder. As much as it may be justified from his viewpoint, he has a very deep-seated love for life, and he wants to share this value with other people even if they may be his own villains. When Goku spared Frieza, he genuinely hoped Frieza would take the coward's way out, crawl away, and just go away in the depths of the universe. He only blasts him back into oblivion when Frieza decides to redonate back the energy he gave him in terms of retaliation. Even if we go back to the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament, Goku spares Piccolo Jr. by giving him a senzu bean after the brutal match. While Goku does state that he wants to fight him again because he does believe he's a really good and strong opponent, the primary reason he saves Piccolo is entirely selfless. Killing Piccolo would lead to the death of Kami. So if Kami dies, there is no Dragon Balls. And on top of that, Kami used to be his old master, so why would he want his old master to die? So Goku is choosing the long-term survival of Earth's supernatural defense system over the immediate execution of Piccolo. And also, to a degree, he believes one of these days he will come around and be on the good side, which he does later on. But one of the biggest points is Goku's philosophy and upbringing. Goku spent 3 years training on Kami's lookout before the 23rd tournament. Kami taught him a reverence for the balance of life. Furthermore, Goku's baseline assumption inherited from his encounters with Yamcha, Tien, and Piccolo is that people can change. Every single one of Goku's greatest allies, besides Krillin and Gohan, started out being adversaries. Yamcha was the bandit thief, Tien was an assassin in training for the Crane School, and Piccolo was the reincarnation of the literal demonic evil Demon King Piccolo. So from the very beginning, even in Dragon Ball, Goku's ultimate worldview is that redemption is always possible. Sparing Vegeta wasn't a gamble for a good fight, it was a gamble that paid off exactly the way that it did for Tien and Piccolo, even though he was doing a really big gamble. Now I understand it kind of perverted this viewpoint of character in the Super arc of things, because characters like Frieza shouldn't be getting that much grace personally. But either way, in the earlier seasons with Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, that still remains consistent. As a Saiyan raised on Earth, Goku exists between two worlds. He uses his Saiyan desire for a challenge to rationalize actions that are actually driven by his Earth-raised kindness and martial arts ethics. He doesn't spare his villains because he wants them to cause more chaos. He spares them because he hates executing unnecessarily, or if need be, if he doesn't have to. He believes in self-betterment and secretly hopes that they, too, might find a better path through martial arts. Even when he was fighting against Kid Buu, when he finished him off with a spirit bomb, knowing that Kid Buu needed to be defeated, he hoped that Kid Buu would reincarnate as a good guy. And even so, he did reincarnate as a good guy and was willing to take Oob under his wing and train him for the later future. Misconception number 5. Goku is a terrible father. Now this is arguably one of the biggest misconceptions to ever exist in the Dragon Ball universe, and partially I do believe and blame Team 4-Star for exacerbating this kind of misconception. Goku is not a perfect father. I'm not going to act like he's the greatest father on planet Earth, but he's far from being the worst. Given from anime standards for a lot of fathers, he's probably up there better from a lot of other people. Goku has sacrificed his life in the beginning of this series to protect his son. He sacrificed his life the second time in this series to protect his son. First time when he was kidnapped when he was a 4-year-old, and the second time when he was the main fighter against Cell. And I'm going to get to the Cell arc in a second. In Dragon Ball Z, Goku shows up to the original squad, the old school squad, with Gohan for the first time after a few years since they've seen him. It's been a very long time. But he has now a 4-year-old child, and on top of that, I'm pretty sure when he was with Chi-Chi, he probably introduced the idea of training Gohan at some point. But when he first gets asked by the original squad, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? He says a great scholar, meaning the idea of being a great scholar didn't turn Goku off in the first place. So that means he was willing to let him be a great scholar. Even later on in the series, when Gohan has stopped fighting and he's no longer in the prime shape that he used to be, Goku doesn't feel bad for him for being a trainer. Like, yes, he would probably like the idea of him being strong enough in case a threat does show up, and it is a tad bit irresponsible of Gohan to think that they will automatically be safe because Vegeta and Piccolo are there, but Goku never forced him away from being a scholar. Even in Dragon Ball Super, before he got the beast form, when they were thinking about the Tournament of Power, people were wondering, like, why didn't you think of your own son? Your son is one of the strongest beings on the planet right now. And he said, well, no, he's doing his scholarly stuff. It's fine if he doesn't want to do it. That's why he first thought of Majin Buu. So even if Goku would like the idea of being able to train with his son and fight with his son has no major interest in fighting. It's always been a thing. And when he learned that in the Cell Saga, he never forced it on his son ever again. But let's talk about the Cell Saga. The Cell Saga that a lot of people bring up, thinking that is one of the worst moments that Goku has ever been in the entire series, showing that he's one of the worst fathers ever, making his son fight Cell at his peak form instead of, winning the fight. And honestly, I had the same feeling, but honestly, when I looked into it deeper later on, I realized that it might be a deeper thing than that. From a developmental and psychological standpoint, Goku falls into a common parental trap, which is projection. He assumed his son possesses the exact same drives, values, and psychological makeup that he does. Now, of course, he is half sane. He would think that maybe he would be really into fighting. And imagine being Goku when he's in the hyperbolic time chamber with Gohan. They've been training for a whole year. And at the latter end, when he turned Super Saiyan 2 for the first time in the hyperbolic time chamber, Gohan had this glint in his eye. He looked, visceral, ready. He was wanting to fight again. He didn't want to stop fighting his father. He probably perceived it in one way, saying like, oh, maybe he does actually like fighting like I do. Because imagine being in Goku's position, you would probably get the wrong idea from that moment, thinking like, oh, you want to see me at my best. You want to fight me at your best. Okay, bet, I got you. When he fights a villain, that's a completely different story. He's testing his abilities with his father, someone that he wants to spend time with. So Goku didn't make that correlation because he's never encountered that in his entire life. To Goku, a true fight requires absolute fairness. In the Dragon Ball Z manga, Goku explains his reasonings. He wanted Gohan to win definitively so that Gohan could gain ultimate self-confidence and show Cell his true unmitigated power. Goku honestly believed that if Gohan fought an exhausted Cell, it would cheapen the victory and fail to trigger Gohan's full potential. He felt like he would never reach it. But we must understand, Goku grew up raised by Grandpa Gohan, but before Grandpa Gohan, he was alone in the woods. His formative years was defined by the martial arts mastery of Master Roshi, where pushing past your physical limits and eating well and sleeping well was the ultimate good. He lacks the emotional vocabulary to understand a child who doesn't thrive on the thrill of combat. Goku didn't give Cell a senzu bean because he didn't care if Gohan died or not. He gave it to him because he was 100% certain at that moment in time that Gohan would win anyway, and he wanted his son to have the perfect martial arts victory. But of course, the strongest evidence that shows that Goku made an honest mistake rather than apathy is his immediate reaction when his error was pointed out to him by Piccolo. Piccolo says Gohan isn't thinking about winning or fairness. He's wondering why his father is just standing there letting him die. He might have the power, but he doesn't have the warrior's heart that you do. The moment Piccolo explains Gohan's actual internal state, Toriyama draws Goku with a look of genuine horror and realization. Goku doesn't double down or defend his choice or tell Piccolo he's wrong. Instead, he panics and immediately demands a senzu bean for himself from Krillin so he can jump back into the ring and save his son. A quote-unquote bad father wouldn't care about the emotional disconnect. Goku actually deeply cares. He was just profoundly ignorant of it until the exact second. There is many times in life where parents have made the genuine mistake thinking their kid is into something when realizing at the very last second that they genuinely don't enjoy it. They probably only enjoyed it because maybe their parents were watching with them or anything like that. It's not completely out of left field for this to happen on the average parent. And then of course, literally chapters later, even after Gohan has achieved his physical power, his ultimate strength, and he still ended up losing because Cell was a sore loser, he sacrificed his life to save his son and his friends and the planet and told his son, "Go tell your mom I'm sorry I couldn't do this and I'm apologizing." He apologized to his son, frame 1, and apologized to him again after he died when they were planning to bring him back. And he said, "No, I do not want to be revived because I believe threats keep coming to the planet, coming to the earth because I've done a lot of things when I was a kid and a lot of people come just because I'm very strong. And I believe that if I stay dead, it will mitigate the amount of risk that will come to the planet." Do you really think a bad dad would do this in the first place? But then this brings me back to a final misconception. I was going to do 5, but I have one more because it really leads into what I was talking about before. Misconception number 6. Piccolo is a better dad than Goku. Now this is the mother of all misconceptions. A lot of people came with this idea that Piccolo is a better father than Goku because of Team 4 Star. That joke has been littered all across that series, and I'm pretty sure people made that joke before the series and after the series without watching it, but many people have said it because of how Goku adores Piccolo. But people keep forgetting, Piccolo is his master, not his father. While undoubtedly Piccolo is one of the most important figures in Gohan's life, framing him as a quote-unquote better father than Goku, especially during Dragon Ball Z, ignores the deeply toxic and traumatizing and even manipulative origins of their relationship. The narrative benchmark that people use to call Goku a bad father is that he let Gohan fight. But let's look at how Piccolo's parenting journey actually begins in the Saiyan saga. A lot of people like to point out that when Goku dies, he likes to stay in the other world and train unnecessarily. Now that might be a little bit more truer in the Super series, because he doesn't necessarily need to die to go to King Kai's planet now. This is when everyone is well enough of being adults and can take care of themselves. But either way, during the Saiyan saga, immediately after Goku dies sacrificing himself trying to stop Raditz, Piccolo doesn't comfort the weeping 4-year-old Saiyan child. What does he do? He kidnaps him and runs off into the wastelands. Piccolo openly admits he was only taking Gohan because he saw the boy's latent explosive power against Raditz. He wants to weaponize Gohan to help him fight the oncoming Saiyans, and explicitly states that afterwards he plans to use Gohan to help him conquer the Earth. So keep in mind, at this moment in time, we still had evil Dragon Ball Piccolo, not good old Piccolo after he dies in the Saiyan saga. Then, after he kidnaps him, Piccolo promptly dumps him, the sheltered toddler, alone in the wilderness for approximately 6 months to a year just to survive. The entire time, Piccolo is just watching from afar and watching Gohan suffer and trying to survive against dinosaurs, crying himself to sleep and damn near starving to death. Now, it is a tad bit fair to criticize Goku's emotional state and distance away from Gohan in the beginning of the series, but Piccolo was actively cruel to Gohan during the early stages of his training. When Gohan cries or shows fear, Piccolo berated him and calls him weak, demands the abandonment of his humanity. In contrast, while Goku trains him during the Hyperbolic Time Chamber arc in the Cell Saga, Goku encouraged him, was patient, celebrated Gohan's milestones, and explicitly tells Gohan how proud he is of him. They had downtime, they celebrated moments without having to fight, actually talking about their lives, actually talking about the future. And while he does talk to Gohan about that at some points, it takes him a while to build up to that kind of relationship. But Piccolo is open to it, especially if he is willing to sacrifice himself for Gohan, because just the very fact that Gohan was willing to talk to him like an actual person and not a monster made him value him even more as an individual, and that's why he decided to sacrifice himself against Nappa. It was Gohan's innate innocence and sweetness that melted the cold heart of the Demon King Piccolo's reincarnation. Piccolo's bond with Gohan is built on gratitude and fierce protective loyalty. However, this makes Piccolo much more than an older brother or mentor or master than a traditional father. Piccolo lacks the parental authority or structural guidance that a father provides because his father was a massive D-head in the first place. He never had a fatherly relationship to begin with. At the very best, he's Gohan's fiercest defender, but he doesn't raise him to be a functioning member of society. Chi-Chi and Goku does. Well, mainly Chi-Chi, but Goku has some responsibility in that as well. We have to understand that Goku also understands the world around him a little bit more, at least in Dragon Ball Z. In Super, they kind of dumbed him down. In Dragon Ball Z, even during the Cell Saga, they had downtime. He purposely made it clear that he wanted Gohan to go study. He wanted everyone to celebrate and chill out before the Cell games even started, because he wanted people to understand what normalcy felt like before everything went to hell. So to a degree, he was willing to help with the mental state of his own son and his family. At the end all be all, Piccolo is an incredible mentor and savior, but his relationship with Gohan is romanticized by the fandom because it is a dramatic redemption arc, whereas Goku's relationship is held to an impossible standards of real-world parenting. Goku is a flawed, naive father who loves his son but struggles to connect with a non-warrior. Piccolo is a reformed villain whose bond with Gohan is forged in survival and trauma. Calling Piccolo a quote-unquote better father fundamentally misunderstands the dark utilitarian beginnings of the relationship with Gohan and minimizes the genuine unconditional love that Goku holds for his son. And those are all the major misconceptions I want to talk about today. There are so many other misconceptions in the series that literally a lot of people like to run with, and understandably I get it, if you want to run with it as a joke, by all means do as you please, but I want to make it absolutely clear. As much as Dragon Ball is to a degree a shonen battle anime, and you don't necessarily have to think about the deepness of the story, but do not call it nothing more than, shonen slop if you really haven't delved into the story itself. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. It's your boy Kadukun. Let me know if there's other misconceptions you want me to do for a video like this again. Maybe you want me to do it for other animes, because I would love to do this again for Dragon Ball, because there is a lot of other misconceptions. Leave a like if you really enjoyed this video also, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel for all the other series I do on this channel on a somewhat weekly basis, the best way I can. Other than that, if you want to check out my gaming channel as well, that's in the link below, or it's on the screen when you look at it. It's your boy Kadukun. I'll see you guys next time, and peace.
FMA, handle business, don't play. On point when it comes to the anime. Jack and Daxter, ayy, let's go. The ultimate heroes, don't stop, we on the road. Kadukun.